Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Wealth Cafe. And today we have an incredible coffee conversation coming up, or should I say, Diet Coke conversation, I guess, considering your beverage of choice. We'll try to forgive you as we focus a lot on coffee and wealth, but that's okay. We're still here for the wealth part, and we are going to cover some amazing tips today. So give a warm welcome to Liz Batch. Liz is the founder of Well Hosted, which we're going to dive into all of that. And that is a training and advisory company helping professionals build trust, presence, and relationship capital through the practice of hosting, which I love everything about that. With a background spanning investment banking, luxury marketing, hospitality, and experiential brand building, Liz teaches individuals and teams how to use the host mindset to elevate any room. Her work sits at the intersection of executive presence, soft skills, client experience, and modern etiquette. Through Well Hosted, she helps ambitious professionals understand that a rich life is not only built through strategy and numbers, which I completely agree with that, but through the way that you make people feel, the rooms you know how to host, and the relationships you know how to sustain. I am so excited to unpack all of this. Welcome, Liz.
Thanks so much for having me. I should have put the Diet Coke in a coffee cup. It's just too late in the day for me to have caffeine.
But you know what? We love authenticity. So
I appreciate that. And for that, I'll have a little sip.
yeah, cheers, cheers. And as we kick off our first question, hosting. Unpack for me. I know when I was reading off your bio, we talked all about how you were in investment banking and luxury marketing, and that's just like so many different moving pieces. How did you get into hosting? And I also want you to define what you mean by hosting.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I figured out what I wanted to do in teaching hosting really as a life skill when I was laid off from my dream job at LVMH. And what that caused me to do was really reflect on what I wanted my next job to be. And I didn't want to go back into corporate. I really wanted to pave my own path. And I realized having that time, after you're laid off and you're thinking through, okay, what next? It was a really like, it maybe sounds a little corny, but it was a return to myself. I realized I had been a host my entire life, and it was really my deepest desire to be paid to be a host. Like, I'm
Yeah.
actually working on a content series I'm starting Friday called Well Hosted with Liz, which is a TV show I hope to be acquired one day. So hopefully this can be like memorialized as,
Yeah.
you heard it first. But I realized ever since I was little, and even when I was in investment banking, even when I was in the luxury marketing, I've always been hosting. It is my competitive edge and how I come to life in the boardroom, in the kitchen, in any room that I'm in. I really embody this idea of being a host. And to me, what it means to be a host is I have what I call the host mindset, which we'll go into,
Mhm.
but it means human centered observation with signature style and taste. And that's really the framework. And it also spells host, so easy to remember. That's really the framework I think of. And I think I believe we're all hosts. We're either doing it by default or by design. And my hope is to make people be a little bit more intentional, because whether you know it or not, you're hosting. Is it just creating the energy that you want? Or is it just creating energy that may not be what you want it to be?
That is so good. And I think, and you and I have talked about this before,
Yeah.
in that like what you said about you're either hosting by default or by design is so true. And one of my favorite quotes is people will forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
Yep.
And I think that is so true because you always remember that person you met in a room and you're like, ooh, them, they had good energy. And even in those small moments, you're hosting, and a
Hmm.
lot of us forget that.
And I'd also point out what even when you're by yourself, you're hosting yourself. And we might hopefully we can dive into this, but I think especially women forget that you are your life's most important guest. And oftentimes we do all the hosting, like bells and whistles for other people. And we forget, in fact, that if we don't have a full well, also part of the name well hosted, right? Like the well, how can you pour into other people? So I don't view it as being selfish to take care of yourself. And I don't mean just putting on an eye mask and calling it a day. I mean, truly investing in yourself will allow you to host your own life and in turn really host others as you intend.
And I think that's such an important distinction that we forget so easily, right? Like we do pour into everyone else and also invest in everyone else, right? Like a lot of
Mm-hmm.
the women who listen to this podcast, especially, are managing teams, running households, trying to keep it all together, have a personal life, go to the gym, and we're running around taking care of everyone else. And then it's like, wait, I didn't even take a second to breathe today. And investing in yourself, I always think is one of the best investments that you can make. Yeah, we can talk about money, stocks, all the good things, but
Mm-hmm.
investing in yourself at the end of the day, like everything can be stripped away from you and you are all you have, which is both beautiful and scary. And you're right, like an eye mask, it's not enough. I own plenty.
Right? You're like, this is these 50 minutes are going to give me back everything that I compromised during the week. And it's just too big of an ask for a small beauty product to fulfill. I would say though, when I got laid off, I spent some more time investing in my health, and I went and saw a sleep doctor, like not on a mountain, like at like a hospital or whatever. I saw a sleep doctor, and I found out that I have sleep apnea, which my watch like flagged to me. And since I've like have the magic sleep machine, which like I look like Bane the villain, like an octopus sort of villain, but it's fine. My husband is like, he's like, I love you either way. So I'm like, that
Free
vibe
love.
check works. But since I've unlocked sleeping well, I'm telling you, it's like going to the sleep doctor, getting the sleep test, doing all of this work has been it's transformed my life. And sleep is something that I think sometimes we compromise. And sleep, hydration. I work with an amazing health coach, Jen, now. And it's just all these things that like fill the well, literally hydration, water, right? It's so
Yeah.
simple as I drink the Diet Coke, right? But it's so simple, but those small things make huge differences so that you can show up as the best host you want to be for yourself and obviously for other people.
And I think it starts with having to host yourself and learning to do
Mm-hmm.
that, right? And sitting there and saying, like, no, I'm going to go say no to these plans because I want to stay in, drink water, be with my family, be by myself, read a book for 5 minutes, God forbid, and go to sleep on time. And I think in order to host others well, we need to start by hosting ourselves well. So I'm so glad you brought that up.
Of
Can we talk
course.
a little bit more about hosting others? Because I think when a lot of people hear this, and myself too, that's why I say
Yeah.
it, we think of like having a dinner party.
Mm.
Oh my God,
Yep.
you want me to have people over and cook for them and add something else to my agenda? So can we break down like where we are hosting in our lives?
Of course. So I love a dinner party, but I'm really on this mission to redefine what it means to host.
Mm.
Right now, I think people have a pretty limited perspective of what hosting is. They think it's entertaining, housemaking, having a menu, picking a playlist. Like these things are fabulous. But I truly believe you're hosting anything in which you're in a room, and the room could even be like outside. So, like, we can think expansively, like the room is the world. It's a little big thinking, right? But whether you're in your home, whether you're in a one to one with your manager, whether you're in a boardroom, whether you're, I don't know, at an exercise class, whatever that is, you bring with you all of your energy. You bring with you how you connect to other people, the human centered. You bring observation, the luxury of noticing, kind of like what's really going on, like what is being said in between the lines. You
Mm.
bring with you your signature style, which is not just like a fabulous red lip, right? It's also how people rely on you to show up. It's your consistency. It's how people know, oh, that's you or that's someone else. Like it's your energy's like sort of signature. And then finally, taste. It's discernment. It's editing. It's what you say, what you don't say. So it's really a mindset I want people to think about instead of it being an activity that someone does. It's a way to approach life. And
Mm.
hosting is not just when you put on the apron and like bake a cake, which can be fun. It's really about like life is a lot of different recipes and like how do you mix it up?
And it's interesting because I also think like, okay, we're moving away from like the Martha Stewart, Ina Garten.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, love
I
them.
love, oh my God, I love heroes, icons. I do think though, sometimes we think too much and we put things in silos where we think,
Mm.
well, that is for the home life.
Yeah.
And then we have icons we think of that are like professional heroes, like you
Mm,
know, women that have done really well in a corporate setting.
yeah.
I want to be someone that bridges the gap between those types of icons that hosting is agnostic of the room. It's really a mindset you take with you from room to room.
And you are so right in that because we put the Ina Garten and the Martha Stewart and insert whoever else into the box of, oh, the cook or Martha, the like home decor, Martha Stewart living person.
Yeah.
If you've ever actually got to see Martha on a live podcast recording a couple weeks ago, and she talked so much about the business side of things. And she talked about like her politics and business and like all these different aspects, which I hadn't thought as much about before, which
Mm-hmm.
shame on me for not, but like it's, that's what the media pays attention to is so much of that part of her. But it is like they also built incredible businesses and companies. Martha was, I'm gonna butcher it too from back in the day, but she was one of the first, self-made women to go public with a company
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
size she did. And so we forget that though, and you're right, like even when she's up ringing, the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ bell or
Yeah.
whatever, you're still hosting.
You really are. And I think so many times, like, not to make it a gender thing, but a lot of times I think people are quick to put people in a box to say, well, Martha, she entertains, like, she can't be as serious. And like, if, and it's like, no, having that duality of being able to hold space for creating a beautiful meal and then being able to be strategic in a mindset like it's not one or the other. And I think a lot of times women embody these different parts of themselves, and sometimes it can be seen that they're a contradiction to each other. Like, I have this story my brother loves, that when I was in investment banking, I would bring in cookies. Like, I love to bake cookies, and then someone made a comment about something about if I would have time to do something if I was baking. Like, no one would say that to any of the male analysts or associates. So I literally said in the office, I was like, well, enjoy. This is the last time I'm baking because I have to be busy doing work. And I think at that point, I let people influence me too much to be like, oh no, this random person is like telling me who I am. But now I have enough self confidence to be like, yeah, I'm gonna keep doing all the things because they make me happy. But yeah, I just think sometimes make people make throwaway comments like, we can't take someone seriously if they also like to host a traditional, like the traditional idea of hosting. But I think one strengthens the other. But you don't have to have a dinner party to host. You're doing it anyway, whether you know it or not, right? We're all
Yeah.
hosting.
And it's funny you give that example too with the cookies because I am when I'm at most stressed. And so for us, the busiest season is typically the Thanksgiving to Christmas because it's
Mm-hmm.
all the year-end tax strategy,
Yep.
everything. And so for me to relax, I love to cook. I
Yeah.
love it. I love to eat a fresh meal, like something so
Mm.
nourishing. Like I
Yeah.
want to be chopping and everything. And it's funny because like as you said that I was like, "Oh my gosh, should I be spending my time doing that?" And I'm like, "No, I should because I'm feeding my body well. I'm taking time to relax and do something I love to once again, back to what we said earlier, get back out into the world and in front of my clients and into my business, helping people when they need it and to have me at my best."
Of course. And I love that you know that about yourself. Like, you can't give and not replenish. So through nourishing food, through act movement, through water, through sleep, whatever you want to do, something needs to come back into that well for you. And a lot of times, again, like, we're kind of guilted into like, well, we do this, we're not a good person. If we do this, we're not. It's like, sort of damned if you do or damned if you don't. So like, do what works for you, because everyone's going to have an opinion. But I always try to think now as I'm getting older, like, mind who the opinion is coming from.
Mm.
And if it's someone you don't even respect, why would you give their opinion any weight? And I've let a lot of times other people sort of outsource my validation, and I've really started to take that back. But it's not been without making a lot of changes in my life, right? Because if you're outsourcing who's assessing if you're a good host or not, you have to make that decision for yourself.
Yeah, and then it impacts the way you host, right? Like
Of course, yeah.
if you're taking in feedback and you can feel it in your body, that like
Mm-hmm.
cognitive dissonance of like,
Yes.
okay, like I'm doing that thing that you told me, but it doesn't feel right, so I don't know what to do. Maybe I'm not doing right, and it just spirals and feeds. And then you wake up I always ask clients, I'm like, what do you want your rocking chair moment to be? Like, how do you want to look back on
Mm,
your life and say, these are the things that I did? And also I like the idea now of adding like how did you feel while doing them and like how
yeah,
did others feel?
it's
Because I
so
think that's
important.
super important because I've seen a lot of people and it's also because then they're not honoring the way they want to host themselves and host their dreams and their aspirations.
Yeah, I love that rocking chair moment. I think really thinking about how, like, the why behind, like, the root reason of why you're doing something. Hosting shouldn't feel performative. Hosting is just natural choreography. Like, it's something that you're moving through your life. I just think a lot of people don't think about it. So it's something that you're doing, but it's just not, it's almost, it's not the same as breathing. Okay. Like, I'm not going to try to own that space, but it's like when you think about like, oh, I'm breathing, you're like, oh, I have awareness of my breath. This is important. So in the same way, it's like, oh, an awakening to, oh, there's like ways I can do this even better to elevate and have better inputs, especially when we talk about like wealth in life. Creating wealth can be, of course, it can be done through capital and things like that, but it's also created through relationships, relational wealth, and how you're investing in those relationships. You don't recommend someone you don't trust.
Hmm.
So being someone that's seen as easy to recommend and easy to remember, those are huge unlocks for your life. And great hosts, they're able to do that.
And I think that really translates into another conversation that you and I have had. And you also mentioned it briefly before, which
Yeah.
is hosting in the boardroom,
Yeah.
like hosting at work and in our careers. And so once we're able to get over this hump of, okay, we've hosted ourselves, well, we're taking care of
Yeah.
ourselves, which is an ongoing journey. Let me not minimize that. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
how do we then translate into, let's start with work, right? Like, how do we
Yeah.
translate into being better hosts at work, but also in a way, because going back to what you mentioned before, like with the cookie example and
Yeah.
myself with the cooking,
Yeah.
is that we can become like, it almost feels like you have to be passive, right? And like the darling little like 1950s. And I know that is not any of exactly not any of the intention behind it. So how do we be powerful hosts, if that's the right way to put it?
Yeah, yeah. So I'd say, like, using a specific example, I think, a lot of people have maybe presentations that they do at work in front of like a diverse group of stakeholders. And a lot of times when people are thinking about, like, one, people don't love speaking in front of people. And two, I think a lot of times people just want to get through it and they think they worry so much about the content they're creating. And a lot of times people make, presentations that read like a book report where it's like this could have not been a meeting
Yeah.
because you're reading a book report and it's like size 12 font. So really with a meeting, I like to think about it in the same way in hospitality, like you think about a guest journey. So before the meeting, during the meeting, and after the meeting, and really thinking about like the outcomes that you want. And that there's a lot of decisions that are made even before the meeting takes place, right? So I think it's like, okay, think about like the outcome that you want from that meeting. How do you design and pick the right meeting room for this? Like, do you buffer enough time before the meeting? So, like in a corporate office, people are just like on top of each other with these meeting rooms. So, how do you buffer so you have like a half an hour before that room's even being used? You stake it out. The energy is calm because if you're having like a senior level executive in that meeting and they're waiting, that sets a tone that you're like not on top of it. And it just people read between the lines. So like really making sure that room is correct, or if you're on a Zoom, you're on the Zoom early, your background looks nice, like things are cute, not loud, no distractions. During the meeting, really think about like who's in the room, the orchestration of like thinking about who you need to influence, who might negate what you're thinking, where the power lies and where the authority lies are really important. And anticipating potential questions, getting buy-in before the meeting, thinking about the presentation is not reading a book report, but like leading with the headline and then having supporting information. I think a lot of times presentations are like building up to a crescendo that you never get to
Yeah.
because people run out of time. If you're trying to make a decision, start with like the so what and then back up with the data if you need it. Because sometimes like you're in a meeting and you run out of time and you don't even know, you're like, why are we here?
And then you have
So really,
another meeting that takes up more time, and you're like, so why did we have the first meeting? Why are we having
yep,
a second meeting?
yep.
So much momentum gets lost. So
Exactly. So
that's a
leave
great.
time, yeah, leave time in the meeting to make a decision in the meeting. So you don't need to have another meeting about the meeting, right? And then after the meeting, really think about what the recap is. What are the next steps? Where was there disagreement? Where is there maybe more data you need? And it's not just about making the presentation, it's about the emotions and feelings of the people that are in the room and building a presentation around the people and not just around I need to make a PowerPoint. Like you're making a PowerPoint for specific people, and people are one of one. So how are you thinking of that mix of people to make something that's going to get you the answer that both you and hopefully your company need?
And I think even when you start like back to square one on all of
Yeah,
this is it starts before the meeting even kicks off, which I think
100%.
so many people forget. It's like, what reminders did you send? What were the to-dos? What were the things to bring? Like we are all so busy.
Yep.
And especially like if you're listening in from the New Jersey, New York metro area, like things move at a thousand miles a minute. And I think part of like the hosting as well, that and my takeaway from this
Yeah.
is it's the start to finish and also the respect of people's time because I think in a lot of situations, corporate, personal life, whatever it might be, so many of us are checking a box.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, we had the meeting. And it's like, well, why? And why didn't this,
Yeah.
like you said, why wasn't this an email?
Yeah, and I think the more you can remove friction or labor from other people, the more they respect that, like, okay, this person maybe put in an hour extra work to think about what's going to come up as questions, like thinking about if even if you have catering in a meeting, like think about dietary restrictions, just like that small touch to be like, I noticed you, I understand, I could get the little things right. And honestly, life is a bunch of little things. So it makes people feel like they can trust you with bigger decisions and that you're just more strategic than someone that booked a room. Like you're really thinking about the performance of it all and making sure that not performatively, right? But like you're thinking about it like it's like a show that you're producing and you want to make sure it's something people want to see again, right? Or be a part of and not like click, turn off, like no thanks, unsubscribe.
And be in that room again because I think then that way, when you remove all those variables of what else is going on, people can really focus on the content of what you are saying. And then you have the host in your delivery of what you're saying. And I, when you said like the 12-point font with all the bullet points and all that, I have sat in so many um, workshops, presentations like that. And I sit there and I think just a small part of me dies. I'm like, we spent how many years on Zoom?
Mm-hmm.
At home in the pandemic. Like, why did we not learn this? And I will say I took a class, honestly, about like presentation skills and like
Yeah.
how to, and it was even just like how to format your slides, which sounds so, 2005, if we want to call it that.
It's not though. It isn't though. I think it's like these things that we take for granted that
Yeah.
then like no one's course correcting it and then no one knows. But you can read faster than you can listen. So if you have your slide should really be, and this could be a whole nother coffee conversation, right? But like your slide should really be a support to you, the presenter. It shouldn't be a crutch. If the slides went away, it should be fine. It's really meant to be like, okay, this is a graph, this is data, this is whatever. We shouldn't just be reading the slide. And I think a lot of times people think like, okay, I'm nervous, I'm going to forget. Like, you know it intuitively. The inner leader in you like has the answer. You just have to trust a bit. But yeah, if you're that kills me every time, the really small font, because you're it's just too much work and friction and people are like immediately tuning out and you've lost them and then it's your job to get them back, like ick, that's hard.
It is. And then also when they put all the text up at one time, and so you're just being slammed with it, and you're like, you lost me.
I love a build, I love an animation, like
So
it,
good.
and it creates like a power of pause and like allowing people to digest what you're saying. You're not just like, take it. It's more like spoon feeding, so people can eat it and whatever. They can really understand like you were being intentional. You weren't just like getting it done. You were doing it in a way that you were thinking about the person receiving the information.
I love that. So we've now talked about hosting ourselves,
Hmm.
talked about hosting in more of a corporate or a workspace setting. What would you say then is kind of number three or part number three in our hosting in the areas that we host in our lives?
Yeah, I'd say relationships. I kind of mentioned it a little earlier before, but I think sometimes in life, people, whether it's professional relationships or personal relationships, we get into this mindset of like this hoarding mentality where we think we need to like collect contacts because more is better. And I really recommend with people to, water the garden you already have. And not to say you shouldn't have more contacts, but I think sometimes there's this idea that, like, right around the bend, there's going to be someone you meet that's going to solve your life. And maybe that might happen. Maybe you already know people that can help you. You're just not investing enough in those existing relationships. And it's like, who's a friend you haven't heard from? And maybe like some friendships fade away, right? But I think we all want to be asked to the dance, but we don't ask people to the dance. And
Yes.
it's really reciprocity. So, in the same way, if you're always hosting people, sometimes you want to be the guest. So, I really encourage people to invest in relationships that they have and really kind of do an inventory of like, is there a certain type of relationship they have in their life that maybe they want more of? Maybe they want more depth. Maybe they someone they forgot about that they want to reconnect with, and like it's, oh, you can always repair a relationship. Um, but I would say don't try to like solve something by adding newness. Like, I think healing sometimes relationships can really help. But yeah, I think even talking with people in your existing network with your biggest dreams, like, weak ties and second degree connections have so much power, and we kind of like don't articulate enough what we are looking for. So now whenever I talk to people, especially on this, right, I'm like, I'm creating a TV show that I want to have get acquired by Netflix. Like, if I'm not talking about this constantly, if I'm not obsessed with it, how can I expect other people? So I would just really encourage people to invest in relationships. That's a huge part of hosting.
Yeah. And it is funny because I think in the world of, I'll put it social media, like
Hmm.
people, like we look at follower counts, we look at all of these different stats around us, and I think that makes us think we need to just keep acquiring.
Hmm.
Let me get more relationships, let me get more contacts, and we don't get deep with any of them. And also in that we see, okay, well, I saw them post that they did this, so therefore I've connected with them, but we're not really connecting and having conversations and creating space to host that person and let them host us as well.
Of course. And honestly, the algorithms are catching up to actually like real human behavior, meaning on LinkedIn, you're rewarded more now on hover rate, save rate, forward rate. And those are all engagement metrics. So there's reach metrics and then there's engagement. So I would say reach is like having a bunch of friends, right? That like you don't really know. So followers, you want friends. And then also like this engagement rate, like how often are you talking to people? Are you seeing people in real life? Are you checking in on people's birthdays? Are you seeing how people are? And that really is the engagement rate. And a lot of brands reward creators now really based off of like, if you have a bunch of followers but they're bots,
Hmm.
the robots ain't going to call you and check in, right? So I think it's really thinking about like, how are you engaging with those people? And that is the most important metric, regardless of if you're being KPI'd on it or not. It's just, it makes it more fulfilling in life if you're engaging in relationships instead of just being kind of surface level or passive.
And in the world of the AI, the bots, the endless media, whatever you want to add to that category, it makes hosting, having connections, our presence, all of that, I think even more important than ever.
I agree. I mean, when I really thought about what I wanted to stake out to do after, like, with in this new part of my career and professional journey, I really thought about AI, and I'm not going like I know enough to make it work to help me with what I do, right? I'm never going to become the expert or the person giving a talk on, how to build agents or something. Like, maybe I'm sure I could do it, but it's not the best use of my time and my unique skill set. So I really view this as not like contradictory to that, but complementary. Like, the more that things become automated away, the more personality And honestly, how people feel around you will matter, because it's not enough to be able to do entry level work. White collar jobs are changing at a rapid pace. I work a lot with college students or MBA students, and this sort of like not necessarily etiquette or polish, right? But like, just what are you giving off? Like, is it something, if it's such a tight job market, the difference between you and someone else is likely going to come down to how they feel around you. Nepotism and all these things aside,
Yeah.
it's really like airport tests, basic stuff. Like, if I got stuck at the airport, could I hang out with this person, or would I be like, hide in the lounge, abort? And I think those tests like have been classic questions people ask around interviewing forever, because it goes back to how people feel around you. And it's a skill that we're doing already. It can be taught to elevate it, I don't think it's like you have it or you don't. Some people have an innate ability, but everyone can learn to be a better host.
I love that. And this has been such an amazing conversation. I loved everything you shared. I think we're going to need a part two to unpack even more of this
I'm
because,
happy to host that,
yeah,
especially like I need to have you also on my show, so we'll talk about that.
I'm ready. I can't wait. This is going to be, we're just going to keep this going and we're going to just host everything from now on and we'll
I
just host
mean,
throughout the world.
please, let's manifest and host a lot of wealth
Love
in
it.
the bank accounts, and in our hearts, right? All the wealth, because that's well hosted.
I love that. And that leads into my final question for you, which is what is one thing that you do every day that makes you feel wealthy?
Ooh, that is a really good question. Something I've been doing lately, which is newer for me, I've really been investing in my physical health, and I'm on this health journey.
Love it.
And I've really been investing in movement, and it doesn't cost anything. I kept thinking I had to join like a gym
Yeah,
and
like
like,
Equinox and
right, because it's like I can pay to be a member, but I have to still like take aligned action and go. But I
Mhm.
got like this walking pad with an incline for the apartment, because before I would walk outside and be like, oh my God, it's raining, I can't walk. I'm like,
Mhm.
yes. But now I'm like, no, I need to get the movement in, because when I'm older, like, I don't want to regret something that I can turn around today. And time is the ultimate luxury. So for me, being able to move in my body, I want to be able to feel lighter in my body, not just a weight thing. But to me, the luxury is movement. Like, I can get up on my two legs, walk around, and to me, I want to do more of that. So to me, yeah, that's my answer. And if you asked me a year ago, I would not have said that. I don't even know what I would have said, but
Okay, we'll
I'm
come back
I'm
another.
a I'm a new person.
Walking pads will change your life. I think they are the best thing, especially if you live in the Northeast, because I love
Mm-hmm.
it when it either gets too hot and it's like
Yep.
100 degrees outside, or if it's snowing, like we had all the snow this year, there is no excuse. So that's why I like it. Even if I'm like walking for like 20 minutes, it changes everything. So I
And you
love
can
that.
just like get it in. You don't have to be like a whole performance. You can just
No,
be like, I have 5 minutes. Like, let's
let me do
go.
it.
Let's go for a little jog in the or jog. What am I saying? A prance. Let's
Yeah.
prance.
I love that. Liz, this has been such an amazing conversation. If anyone wants to connect with you and talk more about hosting, bring you in for different events inside of corporations, all the things that you do, where and how can they connect with you?
Yeah, I'm really building my network on LinkedIn. You can find me at Liz Batch, and it's Liz Liz Batch Batsche. You could find me on Instagram, well hosted by Liz, on YouTube, well hosted, and those are really, or wellhosted.com. You got to own the domain, right? But wherever you find me, send out the well hosted signal, and I'll answer the call.
I love it. And all of those will be linked down in the show notes here.
Great.
And Liz, thank you so much for coming on. And I can't wait to see everything we start hosting next.
Thank you so much. I feel very well hosted.
Oh, I love that. All right. Bye, everyone. See you next time.
Bye.